My name is Evan Carter, and I was invited to my father's retirement dinner the same way you'd invite a distant relative to a funeral, out of obligation, not affection. The invitation came in the mail. Heavy envelope, gold trim, Skyline Club letterhead. Tucked between a short typed message and a card with a dinner menu was one handwritten note. Hope you can make it. It would mean a lot to the family. Mom, not Dad, not we, just Mom. 10 years. That's how long it had been since I left home, and since my father told a room full of people I'd never amount to more than a pair of boots and bad decisions. Now, he was retiring from Carter & Sons Construction after 35 years, and I was expected to clap politely and pretend like he hadn't buried me under his legacy. But I RSP'd yes. I didn't go for him, I went for the ending. If you've ever sat at a table where someone toasted their own success by mocking yours, hit like and subscribe. Because sometimes the best revenge is letting them finish their speech before you speak. The Skyline Club sat at the top of the tallest building downtown, a glass and marble fortress for the city's elite. My father had always wanted to end his career with a view. That night, he got it. I arrived 5 minutes early. The valet looked at me twice. I wasn't in full dress, but I wore the uniform, clean blues, service pins aligned. No insignia screaming rank. Just enough to remind myself where I'd been. The hostess blinked when I gave my name. Right this way, Major Carter. Close, but not quite. I followed her past crystal chandeliers and oil paintings of people who hadn't worked a day in their lives. The dining room buzzed with soft music and expensive laughter. Men in tailored suits, wives in diamonds, drinks that cost more than rent. And there he was. Richard Carter, my father, gray suit, cufflinks, laughed too loud for the room. He spotted me, smiled. That same practiced, tight-lipped smirk he used on clients he didn't respect. "Well, look who it is," he said. "The prodigal enlistee." A few men chuckled. I didn't. My mother hugged me briefly, whispered, "Thank you for coming." I nodded. My father clapped me on the shoulder. "Everyone, this is my son Evan. Took off to join the army instead of learning the family business. Still trying to figure out if that was courage or stupidity." More laughter. Not from me. I took a seat at the far end of the table. Listened to stories I wasn't part of. Laughed at jokes that weren't funny. Smiled at people who didn't remember my name. Then I noticed him. A man at the center table. Silver hair, eagle posture, dark suit, quiet, observing. He didn't laugh, he didn't toast, he just watched me. I knew that look. That wasn't the look of a guest. That was the look of a man who'd seen war. I didn't flinch. Dinner was served. Speeches started. Richard stood, tapped a spoon against his glass. "I want to thank everyone for being here," he said. 35 years in this business and I wouldn't change a thing. Built homes, built trust, built a name. Only thing I never built? He turned, gesturing toward me. A soldier who'd work with his hands. Some people laughed again. Then the man in the dark suit stood up. Tall, calm, voice steady. "I don't want to talk about Richard," he said. "I want to ask this young man something." The room quieted. He turned to me. "You're General Carter, aren't you, from Operation Brimstone?" Every head turned. Even my father stopped smiling. I looked at the man, then nodded. The room went silent. If you've ever been underestimated by the people closest to you, hit that like button and subscribe, because silence can hold more power than shouting ever will. For a full 3 seconds, no one moved. Forks hovered midair. Wine glasses trembled in half-raised hands. My father stood frozen at the head of the table. The same man who once told me I'd grow out of the uniform fantasy. The man in the dark suit, Colonel Bramley, I realized now, kept his eyes on me, not blinking, not smiling, just measuring. "You're General Evan Carter," he said again, "from Brimstone." I didn't speak, didn't have to. The weight in the room shifted like gravity had chosen a new center. My father opened his mouth. "Wait, what? General?" Bramley turned to him. "You didn't know?" The question landed harder than any accusation. My mother's hand covered her mouth. Lucy, my cousin, gasped. One of the firm's junior partners whispered, "No way," under his breath. I stood, not in a rush, calm, measured. "Sir," I said, nodding to Bramley. He stepped forward and did something no one else in that room had ever done to me. He saluted, sharp, formal, clean. I returned it, silent. Gasps followed, then murmurs, then silence again. He extended a hand. Colonel Bramley, retired now, but I was command-side advisory during Brimstone, saw the reports, heard the calls. I never forgot your voice. My father was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. And maybe he hadn't. I turned to him. "You once said I'd be nothing but boots and bad decisions," I said quietly. "Turns out boots can carry a nation." Someone coughed. Awkwardly. Bramley smiled. "This young man here, while you were laying concrete, he was laying the framework for entire regions. You know what he did during Brimstone?" "No," Richard said, voice suddenly dry. "He stabilized the most volatile corridor in the North Sector, secured 3 capitals, lost 0 civilians. The Pentagon used his field reports for policy strategy, and when the lead convoy was hit, he dragged a bleeding staff sergeant through 6 clicks of fire, on foot." My mother's eyes welled. Her lips moved, but no words came. I stepped back, straightened my collar. "I didn't come here to be recognized," I said. "I came to listen." But I've done enough of that. The room stayed dead quiet. No more jokes, no more toasts. Only one voice broke the stillness. Bramley again. "I don't normally speak at retirement dinners," he said, "but I couldn't let a man's service go unspoken, not in front of people who should have known better." He looked around, and then sat. I looked at my father. He stared back, jaw set, eyes full of something between fury and fear. For the first time in his life, he had nothing to say. I turned and left the table. Didn't wait for dessert, didn't say goodbye. In the elevator down, I could still feel it. The silence behind me. Heavy. Permanent. Outside, the wind was sharp. But I'd felt worse. Much worse. I didn't go home, I drove. Windows down, collar loosened, dress blues still sharp under the city's glow. I didn't turn the radio on. I wanted the silence. The kind that settles after impact. Not relief, not peace. Just stillness. I didn't know where I was going until I got there. A 24-hour diner on 8th and Marlow, the same one I used to sneak into with friends the night before deployment. Greasy booths, weak coffee, real people. I took a booth in the back. The waitress came over, chewing gum like she was fighting sleep. "Menu? Just coffee?" She nodded and left. I sat there staring into the window, my own reflection half lost in the dark. The man looking back wore more than a uniform. He wore years, weight, decisions. My phone buzzed. 1 missed call, Mom. 2 new messages, Lucy. 1 voicemail, Dad. I ignored all of them. The coffee came, burnt, perfect. I was halfway through my 2nd cup when a figure slid into the seat across from me. Colonel Bramley, not in uniform now, just a black coat, wool scarf, eyes that missed nothing. He didn't ask, just sat. "You left a crater in that room," he said. "I didn't plan to." "No, but he earned it." I looked down at the cup. "He's still my father." "Yeah," and you're still the one who had to bleed so he could brag." I didn't reply. He reached into his coat, pulled out a small envelope, thick paper, government seal. "What's that?" "Citation copy, the one they kept classified. Some of us thought that was wrong." I took it slowly, opened it. Inside, a letter, signed, stamped, language clean, sharp, heavy, valor in action. Leadership under fire, strategic command in high-conflict environments. My name printed 3 times. Evan Carter, Brigadier General, U.S. Army. I exhaled. "You know," Bramley said, "your father's name meant something in this city for 30 years. But tonight, everyone saw what his son became without his shadow. He stood. I won't tell you what to do with that letter, but if I were you, I'd make sure he reads it." He left without waiting for a response. I sat there another hour, reading the words over and over. Not because I didn't believe them, because I finally could. At 3:12 a.m., I drove back to the hotel, showered, changed, laid the citation flat in a fresh envelope, wrote no note, just one name on the outside. Richard Carter sealed it, and slept harder than I had in years. He was waiting on the porch when I pulled into the driveway. Same house, same bricks, same porch swing with the chipped paint, the house I grew up in, where every achievement was compared to a blueprint, every failure a stain on his name. Richard Carter sat there like he was holding court, hands steepled, eyes hidden behind morning glare. I stepped out of the car in civilian clothes this time. No uniform, no medals, just me. The envelope was in my coat pocket. I walked up the steps slow, measured. He didn't speak until I was 2 feet away. "You embarrassed me," he said. I nodded. That was the idea. He blinked. "I built a legacy," he said. "A company, a reputation." "No," I said. "You built a stage for yourself." He stood. "I gave you everything. You gave me a last name, then spent 20 years making sure I regretted having it." His mouth tightened. "You don't get to rewrite history," he said. I pulled the envelope from my pocket, handed it to him. "I don't need to," I said. "It's already been written." He hesitated, took it, opened it slowly. He read in silence. His eyes flicked down the page, once, twice. When he got to the signature, the one with the gold stamp from the Department of Defense, he flinched. "This is real?" he asked. I didn't answer. He looked up. "You're a general?" "I was promoted 8 months ago. Before that, deputy commander. Before that, special operations lead on 3 classified assignments. You know how I got there?" He didn't respond. "Not with your approval, not with your money. I got there because every time you told me I wasn't good enough, I listened and proved you wrong." He folded the letter, tucked it back into the envelope with a hand that suddenly looked older. "You came here to gloat?" "No," I said. "I came to bury it." He squinted. "Bury what?" "You, me, the weight of this house, the version of me you made up so you wouldn't have to see who I really was." I turned to go. "You're still my son," he said quietly. I paused, looked over my shoulder. "No," I said. "I'm someone you gave up before he ever had a chance." Then I stepped off the porch. Behind me, the door didn't close. He just stood there, holding a truth he could no longer deny. 2 days later, I got the call. It wasn't my father. It was Bramley. "Thought you might want to hear it from me first," he said. "Hear what?" "He's stepping down from the Veterans Board." I blinked. He was on the board. "For 20 years, Bramley said. "Token civilian member, big donations, big mouth, minimal substance. And now?" "Now?" Bramley paused. "He told them he's not qualified to represent veterans, said it in writing." That silenced me for a second. Not guilt, not pride, just surprise. He didn't mention me, I asked, number. But you could feel it in the way he spoke. Man's walking around with a mirror now, and he doesn't like what he sees. I sat back in the hotel chair. Bramley continued. We've got an opening. For what? Advisory Council, national level. Leadership mentoring for post-combat transition, high impact, high profile. I'm not interested in optics. It's not about optics, he said. It's about reach. I didn't answer. He said one more thing. If you're tired of being underestimated, come sit at the table where no one doubts your voice. Then he hung up. I stared at the wall for a long time. The TV was on, muted. News scroller across the bottom of the screen. Something about military appropriations, new funding for outreach programs. Then my name flashed. General Evan Carter, to join National Advisory Council for Veteran Affairs. I hadn't accepted yet, but the leak told me everything. Someone had decided the answer was yes, maybe even me. That afternoon, I walked down to the marina. Not for the view, for the space. Seagulls screaming overhead. Salt wind on my face. Water dark and wide. I pulled out my phone, opened a blank note. Typed 3 words, I accept, EC, then hit send to Bramley, to the future, to myself. Back at the hotel, I got one more message from Mom. Subject, no subject. He's not speaking much, he hasn't touched the letter. But he's been different, quieter, like someone finally told him the truth and he can't unhear it. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. The name Carter still meant something. Only now. It meant something because of me. The article went live 1 week later. From Silent Sun to Strategic Voice, the rise of General Evan Carter. Photos. Timeline. Quotes from Bramley. A clean, public record of everything I never asked to be known, and everything I stopped hiding. It hit national news within 12 hours. My inbox flooded. Former soldiers, officers, young recruits, civilians, strangers. Messages like, "You showed us, we don't have to shout to be heard." My father never saw me either. Thank you for showing what strength looks like. But the one message I didn't expect, from my father. It was short, plain, no punctuation. I read it. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Because that article wasn't for him. It was for every version of me that sat through years of silence. For the kid who stood outside his father's office while men inside laughed about real work. For the young officer who watched comrades fall in places no one could pronounce. For the man who once believed quiet meant weakness. Now, quiet meant power. I took the advisory seat, traveled, spoke. Not for attention, but for change. When young soldiers asked for advice, I gave them 3 things. Don't chase legacy, build one. Lead like your name doesn't matter. And if they doubt you, let them. It buys you time. At the end of that year, I stood at a podium in D.C., the capital behind me, delivering a keynote on post-combat transition. Halfway through, I saw Bramley in the back row, arms folded, nodding once. And I saw my mother, standing beside a man in a gray suit. He didn't wave, but he stayed until the end. Later, after the crowd cleared, I found a note on my chair, handwritten, no signature. You became more than I ever imagined, and everything I never deserved. That, finally, was enough. I folded it, placed it in my pocket, and walked into the next chapter, not as a soldier, not as a son, but as the man who rewrote the name that tried to define him.